Greetings, Rob McCrae here, erstwhile known as Clan McCrae 9, and in this video we're going to take a look at the new 2.5 version of the Vassal module for Imperium Romanum 2, and specifically we're going to be looking at the new combat features that have been added. So what I've done is I pre-placed a couple of stacks here, similar to what we looked at before. I'm going to hide the pieces here for a second so you can see that the purple stack is on Hesperus, attacking across the river into this clear territory here, or rather the brown territory. And so we're going to start out by taking our stacks, putting them on the appropriate calculator. Attacker goes there, defender goes there. Next I'm going to hit the attacker calculator button. First I want to show that I built in this floating menu label because I realized the way I build my labels, I go for simplification, but that can be frustrating sometimes because you have to use the flyovers to see what the buttons are for. So if you want to, you can bring up this little menu label window and just set it up there if that doesn't bother you. And you can still see most of the menu, and you can get some text for what each menu button does without giving up any of your map space or increasing the size horizontally for the menu labels. Okay, so we're going to select the attacker calculator here, which will calculate numbers here for the attacker and defender combat points. So let's go ahead and do that. It takes about 8 seconds for everything to get calculated. There we go. So the attacker has 130 attack points and the defender has 30 combat points. You can see as well that it's displayed up here as text. But, and we probably should have done this first, but it works out the same. But we know that he was attacking across the river, so that's going to reduce his combat points to 65 to 30. Now I can kind of eyeball that and see that that's going to be a 2 to 1, but let's use the combat ratio tool here to verify that. So this number here indicates how many points, how many combat points the attacker must have to meet this combat ratio. So for instance, if I wanted to see if the attacker could use 4 to 1, I could quickly identify that 120 combat points are required, and the purple attacker does not have that many combat points. So let's bring it down to 3 to 1, and again the attacker does not have 90 combat points. Bring it down to 2 to 1, and that's where we can see that the attacker does meet 60 combat points with his total of 65. So as I mentioned in the previous video, odds of 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 1, and 1 to 3 are pretty easy to eyeball. But this game has 3 to 2 and 5 to 4 and 2 to 3 and 4 to 5 ratios that are not quite so easy to eyeball. So I think the tool is going to make things a little bit more easier for people who are not necessarily mathematically inclined like myself to just be able to eyeball stuff. And plus it's a fairly fun tool to use as well. Okay, so now we know that we've got 2 to 1 odds in this attack. So next I'm going to bring up my land combat results table. And I'm going to set some modifiers here. So the first modifier is the aggregate leader mod. So looking at these two leaders, I have Caesar at +3 and Cicero at 0. So that tells me right off the bat that the attacker has a +3 leader modification. Now if the defender had the modification, it would be a negative. And you could see how it affects the starting point for the column. So this is pre-roll information. So it just kind of lets you know which way it's sending the column. And obviously the attacker wants to be over here. The defender wants results to be over here. So I'm going to see, I forget what the brown represents. Okay, so that is rough territory. So that's going to be a rough terrain modification. So that adjusts the table as well. CER difference, I believe that they would both be CERAs in this case, so that's going to come out to 0. I'm going to make up a couple of morale numbers here. So I'm going to say that Caesar has a morale difference of +1. I forget what the exact numbers are. It may be 50 morale points more where you get an extra modification to the die. But at any rate, per the rules, you would adjust the morale difference. And either side could offer money to buy morale points in the donative category. I'm going to suggest that that's not happening. So it's pretty easy to see that Caesar has pretty good numbers here in the row column. Now I'm going to set the combat ratio, which we decided was 2-to-1. And you do that by just left clicking on that little number there. And the number here is just informational, just so that the counter works. So it just gives you, 1 through 10. But this number here is what you're going to be looking for to make sure that that number matches that number. So let's go ahead and roll our die. And the combat die is this green die up here. As you can see that I've added some extra colored die here for the 2.5 version. And those are to help specifically with the results tables. The land combat results table, the naval combat results table, and the random events table. I'll probably do a separate video for the random events table. The naval combat results table pretty much works just like the land combat results. But the random events has an extra feature in it that you really kind of need to see to know how it works. So let's go ahead and hit the green die. And you can see that it says Clan McCrae 9 rolled 1d6 with a result of 5. Okay, so obviously with a modifier of 5 and a roll of 5, that's going to put us in the 9+ category. So our results are going to be very favorable for Caesar here. N indicates no loss for the attacker, and E indicates that Cicero's force is eliminated. So that should make combat a little bit easier to work through than it's ever been before, and certainly it's very visual as well. So I kind of like the way that this worked out. It doesn't automate everything to the point that it becomes unfun for the player, but it does automate enough that it simplifies, and the player gets to interact with the game, I think, at a fairly good level. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to show on the land combat results table. Feel free to go to any of my entries. I've been putting notes into Board Game Geek on the Imperium Romanum page. So just take a look at that and give me some feedback on what you think about this. Okay, until next time, Clan McCrae 9 out.